So, Emily, President Trump's inauguration was peppered with tech billionaires. As Trump says himself and is boasting at the moment, everyone wants to love me now. Has he defeated, Steve Bannon was saying he's beaten these tech billionaires. They're now crawling to him.
The poodles in the front row. And then the cabinet in the second row. So really, a big symbolism in that positioning of the sort of row of tech billionaires all giving each other the side eye, looking very uncomfortable, some of them extremely comfortable. Yes, I think this week, the last 2 weeks, and in a way the election has been all about tech. And it would be quite interesting to reflect on what's happened with TikTok over the last week. We've had, I think, since the last podcast, we had the Supreme Court ruling.
So we've moved from a position of TikTok being a case for national security. So we need to, as far as the lawmakers are concerned, and let's be clear, we've been talking about the lawmakers, the Supreme Court, these 80-year-old guys, and if you go and talk to them about anything to do with tech, they go, oh that's horrible, ban it. And then you actually say, well, no, actually everybody is doing that everywhere all the time. You've had this case. Kieran, would you agree that TikTok is too dangerous for everybody to use, so you've got to take it out?
It's absolutely deadly. I don't know if you've seen any of the videos on there. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm not sure society will survive, so they're quite right.
Yeah, so ban it. So
also,
ban it. But
Trump was also, national security threat, Reds under the bed, ban it.
So that's now fixed.
It's now fixed, and Donald Trump, as he was signing his
executive
order, is now not a national security threat, because what changed your mind, President Trump? I got used to it. So that's actually the answer to national security threats, is once you get used to them, it's fine and not a threat anymore.
Okay, so Kieran...
And also, if you have a warm spot for TikTok, as President Trump does, then it's no longer a national security threat.
Yeah.
Which is quite the turnaround for somebody who himself signed an executive order back in 2020 defining it as an urgent national security threat.
We're obviously for the next 4 to 5 years, we're just going to have such a laugh, aren't we, about this person?
Well,
but honestly, it is the will of the people. There's no doubt. And we're watching the big tech. They've got to crawl, haven't they, really? Because it's all about regulation, isn't it? I mean, if they don't creep and crawl, their companies are going to be punished. Would you agree, Kieran?
I would say that Donald Trump is extremely effective at wielding power. That's what I would say. And yes, the fact that he's managed to get these tech bosses to do what they're doing in public is a sign of what he's perfectly prepared to do, and they know it. So that's what's happening. I mean, I don't agree with the policy-making process of how does this one man think about things today. You could say it's very swift. I mean, you don't have to go through the usual processes of, finding compromise amongst hundreds of people with different perspectives. You just ask the man that hasn't thought about it very much what he thinks. I'm not sure it's going to be very effective or efficient going forward, but that's
the next point I want to come to. But Emily, you've been telling me he's not going to the Senate and getting agreement about anything. He's just been signing one after another. He's realised he can sign these executive orders legally. As president, he can just sign this stuff and it becomes a reality. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes, but he's not alone in that. I mean, it's the US. I mean, Kieran, you've lived in the States, so that the impression here is that the US lawmaking process is sclerotic, broken, deadlocked. There is very little middle ground between the two parties. And so it was actually President Obama who started to rule by decree, and that has continued through the Biden era. Now, executive orders are a perfectly respectable way of using executive power to identify and cure national security risks, for example. But the theatre, so we had the theatre of the tech billionaires first line in the inauguration, we also had the theatre of Trump's desk in the Oval Office littered with these labelled executive orders, hundreds and hundreds. And this is what we're now going to have is rule by decree.
And his play has been the country's in a state of emergency. We need to fix things.
Yeah.
Things need happening urgently.
And this is, for historians among our listeners, this is actually one of the key causes of the English Civil War back in the 17th century, was the bypassing of Parliament by the sovereign and using prerogative power to make laws. And eventually that was rejected.
So given it was so it was our fault in the first place for designing this dreadful system, and then Obama's fault for using it. And I noticed at the inauguration, Kieran, you had all of these presidents lined up, and they, 5 of them were just staring icy-faced forward, and their wives were whispering them to not look so angry. And the only one who was looking good was Obama next to Trump. And they were just having a great laugh because they were obviously saying, I couldn't quite lip read, but it was like, the executive orders are bloody great, aren't they? Yeah, they are. You can just do what you want, can't you? Who's going to challenge him? So, all this stuff is changing unilaterally. And I'm interested, Kieran, on where this is going, because at some point, surely, second term, Keir Starmer's got a huge mandate, Trump's got a huge mandate. They've got to deliver wealth to poor people, and they've got to reduce things like pernicious online scams and fraud. How are they going to do this?
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, the thing with the executive orders is that they can then be rescinded. Like some of these executive orders are rescinding Biden's executive orders. So it becomes this sort of merry-go-round. And also he's passed executive orders that go directly against, amendments in the Constitution. So they're completely ludicrous. But it's just show. I mean, we've got reality TV in America right now.
Well, and this interplay of the tech billionaires. You were saying there's a new tech guru that we've got to listen to. Earlier today.
So we've got the UK version, which is like the slightly smaller, less consequential version of America's loving tech bosses, and that's the Competition and Markets Authority. They've got a new interim chair, and he's an ex-Amazon boss.
What?
So unusual, he took over. It?
It's quite interesting, and so people say, now we're in the pockets of big tech. And was quite the very next day, the CMA announces investigations into Apple and Google and their mobile ecosystem.
What about Amazon? Are they getting investigated?
Amazon's fine. Don't worry about Amazon.
Amazon's fine. Nothing to see. The chair says it's great.
The one person in charge, people get to decide now. That's what happens. You get the top job and you decide how the world is.
I think what I'm interested in. So we've got Trump, who's now sort of making friends with the kind of continuing his friendship with Russia. He sounds a bit cross with Putin today because yesterday Putin didn't agree to end the war. And now Trump's talking about holding back on deals. It's all about business and deals. You've got him showing warmth towards China, threatening war against Europe. Where is Europe going to move next? Europe is holding itself up as the regulator of the internet, the safer internet, dealing with online harms. And you're seeing sort of this Britain and EU shuffling towards this sort of pan-European Mediterranean convention, reducing tariffs, sort of building this pack. You can see Starmer's clearly, wouldn't you agree, Kieran, blown it with Trump.
I don't think they're going to get on fabulously well.
I'd be
surprised. No, I don't.
No.
They're not really.
No.
Bit chalk and cheese, aren't they?
Well,
I don't think they're going to be buddies. I can't see suddenly if Keir Starmer turns up with an orange tan and a fake hairdo. Well, they've got the same hairdo except Keir Starmer's looks real.
My biggest shock really was Musk attacking Farage. I mean, because for me, that is such a route into the heart of Trumpy, MAGA, British thinking, and to attack the leader of the MAGA British thinking, that to me just seems insane when you're trying to.
It's very simple. The problem we're all having is we're trying to attach this to reality and the fact that it's really important. If you look at it all as if it's a reality TV show, Of course, you've got to have one person yelling at another person every week.
Yeah.
And they're best buds one week and then they're fierce enemies the next. What's going to happen next week?
And
That's
maybe we'll have a
the world
Farage
we're in.
Musk cage fight.
Right. Yeah. So you have a lot of victim drama triangle happening here. A victim, and Europe, whether it's UK and Europe parent. Where is Europe heading
I think
with
Europe's
this?
in trouble because alongside all the tech billionaires queuing up to worship at the altar of Trump, you've also got all of the right-wing EU member state leaders there as well, desperate to pose with him, whether it's the Italian leader, Hungary. But, there's been a wave of elections in EU member states which are really rejecting the EU. So the chance of the EU coming up as a strong force to counter Trump, I think, is really low.
There is regulation, so we'll see. And maybe we'll be banning the big platforms for various things in Europe. We'll have to watch this space. Now it's time for our Guilty Pleasure Online. Okay, I had a really boring one. So does anyone have a good one? Alice or Igor, do you have a good guilty pleasure online? I can't. My one was going to be tech self-training videos, but actually I think that's so shit.
Watching people accidentally melt their hair off by attempting to go blonde and then a hairdresser reacts to it.
That was Alice.
That's
you
a
make
good
that up because that sounds good.
Yeah,
Was that on
makes things-
TikTok?
TikTok, YouTube, anywhere
Was that
you
on
look,
Red Note,
there's
Alice?
people melting their hair off. I haven't checked Red Note, but I'm sure it's
So are they
beautiful.
Are the hairdressers are they compassionate or are they jeering? Or they just sad?
It depends. They are sad at the lack of advice being followed. The mistakes. They clarify the mistakes that have been made with a sense of sympathy, but also
horror.
It's quite remarkable.
That's
Just
really,
to fill in
my
there,
hairdresser. When I went to the hairdresser after the pandemic, she said, "We have had so much love since we reopened." And she said people came in terrible states. Somebody had tried to do their own highlights with a comb and a bottle of bleach and just looked like a leopard.
But just to
Everybody learned that hairdressing's not that easy.
No,
during
it's
the
not that
pandemic.
easy. Who cut your
Collective
hair during the
knowledge
Did you go Tony Blair during the pandemic?
I must
or did
say
you,
this is
did
becoming
you,
slightly
Did you
surreal,
do a home job?
But, that's part of our job is to go from tech to the
I want to
surreal.
know how Kieran cut his hair during the pandemic.
I had some clippers, so I just went very simple clippers, and then the my wife did the sort of snipping. It was, I think I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, very good.
Great.
Very good.
Well, let's talk to her about that. So that was Alice Taylor, who's standing in for Charlie Wickham backstage. Thank you, Alice. That was
Voice of God
That
this
really
week.
trumped me, so to speak.